Hi, this is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. Well, do you need to carb load before you do a marathon if you're engaged in a low-carb diet? And the answer is, well, it kind of depends. And it depends on how long you've been doing low-carb. And let's talk about this a little bit. The idea of carb loading was actually started back in the 1980s by Dr. Tim Noakes in his book, The Lure of Running. And what he noticed, he was a marathon runner, and he noticed that people were running out of energy toward the end of the races. And the idea was to eat lots of carbs to increase the amount of glucose being stored in the muscles before a race, and you'd have that extra store ready for you. And that was why a lot of marathon runners were always munching on gel packs and trying to drink sugary drinks and stuff like that to keep their glucose levels high so that they could finish up long endurance races. So anything over 90 minutes, that's kind of what the cutoff point was. And that was the idea, and Tim Noakes supported it until he became a type 2 diabetic and started to realize, no, wait a minute. And he started looking into it and realized that his advice was actually working against him, that he was creating fatty liver, and it was actually not working out well for him. And he's now become a low-carb proponent. But the question is, do you need carbs for athletic performance? And this is one of the interesting things that Dr. Stephen Phinney and Dr. Jeff Volek have studied. And they have noticed that there's a period of adoption where you switch from being primarily a carb burner at your athletic performance to a ketone or fat burner. And there's a period of adoption that happens, and how much time it takes can vary from person to person. But interestingly enough, the higher level athlete you are, the more it makes a difference. So if you are doing an ultra marathon type event, switching over to a high-fat diet a couple of weeks before the event isn't going to give you enough time. It really takes a period of months to switch over, particularly for higher-level athletes. So they want to make the switch during off-season. I noticed it when I switched over from a standard American diet to a low-carb diet. I was training for a 5K run, and so I noticed that there was a definite drop in performance during my training, and I couldn't quite figure out why until I ran across these studies from Dr. Phinney and Dr. Volek. And it took me about 6 weeks or so to kind of switch over, where I was starting to get an increase in performance where I didn't need carbohydrates. Now, what was interesting about this to me was during the day, during my regular activities, man, I had a lot of clarity going, pulling out the carbs. But during the athletic type stuff where I was doing, jogging, I definitely noticed that there was a drop in performance, and it took a little while to make the body get used to turning over and start burning fat for ketones. So if you are going to the gym and you switch over to a low-carb diet, realize that you may have about a month or two where you're going to have a drop in performance, particularly toward the end of your workouts, where you're going to have less energy and you're going to see slower times on runs, but it's going to shift over in a couple of months, and you're going to get better times. And your heart runs better, about 20% better on ketones than it does on glucose. So you're going to get an increase over time with your body, but it's going to depend on your body's ability to be able to convert this stuff. And you've got a certain amount of glucose that is going to occur within your body. There's a certain amount that's stored in the muscle, etc. So you've got some, and that's what your body is running on kind of during the day. but you burn it off pretty quickly unless you're replenishing it. I mean, your body only needs about 2 teaspoons of glucose in the blood at any given time. So what it does is it uses insulin and other things to start pushing it, first of all, into your muscle. So if you were eating a low-carb diet, any glucose that excess is going to be stored in the muscle, and that's a safe place to store that, and your body's going to use it in a flight or fight mechanism. So, quick bursts of energy, it's going to burn off all your glucose pretty darn quickly, and that's normal. But the problem is, because we have a diet that is just so rich in carbohydrates and they're so available, that your body slowly but surely becomes insulin resistant, where you are storing insulin is overutilized, being overutilized to take that extra glucose, and when it runs out of storage space in the muscle, it starts storing in the liver, it starts creating fat. That's what insulin does, or one of the things with insulin is it's exquisitely good at fat storage. But when you cut down the carbs, you're not storing the fat anymore because you're not turning on the insulin. And that's why low carb works so well for weight loss, that it helps your body utilize your fat stores, but realize that it takes some time to convert. You are born in a state of ketosis. If you do not eat for a couple of days, your body is going to naturally make ketones and run on it. But it takes a while to become really fat flexible and to become metabolically adapted. And especially when you're talking about high levels of athletic performance. That's the bad news. The good news is that once you become fat adapted and you're metabolically flexible, you don't need to eat all the time. And, one of the things that bugs me is, we see kids out playing sports and stuff like that, and they always give them snacks during halftime and things like that. One of the cool things about being really metabolically flexible is I don't have to eat for a couple of days if I don't have to. I mean, if I'm busy, or sometimes I just won't eat just because I'm not feeling good, or for whatever reason, I don't need to eat. My body can utilize my own fat stores for a few days, and I don't feel that really bad pang, which, and I don't lose energy. Matter of fact, I start to feel a little bit more energetic as I go, if I don't go a couple of days without eating. So, how flexible are you metabolically? And, you want to be metabolically flexible so that your body can utilize its fat stores very effectively. And this is something that we lose over time. When we were kids, we would drink a sugary soft drink and we'd have to pee right away because our body was really metabolically flexible. Carbs, in many ways, are toxic to the body, and the body wants to get rid of them, and they're going to want to pee them out as quickly as possible. And one of the reasons why I think we gain weight so much in our 30s is we start to lose that metabolic flexibility. Can't prove it, but that seems to be the case for a lot of folks. That and that's why low carb diets work so well for weight loss over time. Is people become much more metabolically flexible. They reduce the amount of inflammation in their body, and it works. So hopefully this will be some encouragement. If you notice when you switch over, if you're an athlete and you see a drop in performance, realize that it's a temporary effect, that it's going to take you a little while. And if you are about ready to do a marathon, don't switch diets until after the marathon's done, because just switching over to a high-fat diet a few weeks before the race isn't going to give your body enough time to adopt. This is Kirk, the Bariatric Carnivore. I try to put out a couple messages each week. If you like this message, please hit like and subscribe. I will talk to you again soon.